Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we are going to paint a greeting card. It's going to be Hanukkah themed because we are into Hanukkah right now. And I'm also going to show you how to do a bokeh background. And we're going to use a circle template for this. I have this one that came from the drafting aisle of an office supply store, but you can also take like some glossy junk mail and a round circle punch and punch some circles to make your own template. I'll be using circles kind of in this area here. We're not going to need that right now. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to draw a dreidel, and I am just going to start by drawing a box that's kind of like on an angle. Okay, and then I'm going to give it a little bit of a side like that. Then I'm going to give it a little triangle off the front. And then I'm just going to connect it, and hopefully that'll look like a dreidel kind of sitting on its edge. And I'm going to put a peg at the, oops, that should be over a little bit. Oh goodness. I'm going to put a peg in the middle for the part you would hold to spin the dreidel. I also want to put a couple of coins, like chocolate coins. So drawing an ellipse. And then just kind of giving a little bit of thickness. And then, oh, maybe we'll do one underneath that. Hopefully that's all in frame. And we'll put another one over here just to help hold that top one up. Now I've been requested a few times to do a Hanukkah card. I'm not Jewish myself, so I apologize if I get anything wrong. I'm doing my best, and I'm just trying to be as inclusive as I can, so that, you know, we can all enjoy each other and celebrate with one another. And there are characters on the sides of the dreidel. I'm just going to kind of roughly sketch in kind of what I've seen from photos. I hope I've got it somewhere in the ballpark. But if I don't, I apologize. I'm doing my best. Okay, I'm going to erase little hairy lines there. Alright, and then I'm going to wet the background. I'm going to wet everything except for my drawing here of the coins and the dreidel. And I'm just going to use a flat brush. You can also use a round brush, it doesn't matter. By the way, the mismatched washi tape are because I actually finished a roll. I've been trying to use my oldest washi tape as taping down watercolor paper because they don't last forever, and some of this washi tape is like 8 years old. These are my oldest washi tapes from Paper Mart, and so I'm trying to use them up because you get to a point where they just don't want to, like, it's really difficult to like to pull them off of the roll. So I'm just trying to use them before I lose them, basically. So if you got some old washi tape in your stash, it works really good for this because it is a low-tack tape, so it shouldn't damage your paper. But you can always heat it with like a hairdryer or a heat tool before you remove it from your paper if it's feeling like it's going to be difficult to remove. So the impression I'm going for here is kind of like a dreidel that's spinning on that's being played on a table, and in the background there may be a menorah or something that's casting some really pretty soft speckly lights, so that bokeh effect, that's what I'm trying to achieve in the background. But it's not going to be like specifically like 8 or 9 spots of light. It's going to be much more abstract, just to give us that kind of shallow depth of field effect. Now you want your paper to be like a kind of like a semi-gloss sheen, so our paint will move. And I'm going to first start with some yellow ochre, and I'm using the Turner watercolors. They are back, my signature sets at Jerry's Autorama are back in stock right now. They just got back in stock last week, so if you were waiting for one of the Turner sets, I mean one of my signature sets, a Turner watercolors, Lucas watercolors, or the Lucas Berlin water mixable oils, they are back now. I want a shallow depth of field, which means I want the back part of this table that the dreidel is being played on to be kind of fuzzy. So it's okay if it blends into the background. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to add a little bit of burnt sienna around the edges here. This is pretty wet. You probably don't have to have it this wet, but you do want your colors to blend. A little bit of burnt sienna from the edges. Then underneath the dreidel, I'm going to have a little more burnt sienna. I'm also going to take some ultramarine blue and burnt sienna and mix them together to make a nice shadow color. And I'll add that under our dreidel. Okay, and then the background, I want the background to be pretty dark. I'm going to start with really vibrant colors. I'm going to start with some magenta. We're going to be lifting off a lot of this, so that's why I want these really, really bright colors. I'm going to use, but I don't want to be lifting off to pure white, so I'm going to be using staining colors. So I've got magenta, I've got phthalo blue. I'm going to do some phthalo green. Just very gently outline the edge of the table. I don't really want it bleeding too much. I want a blurred edge there, but I don't really want to bleed there, so just very gently there. These dye-based colors are pretty strong. I'm just going to try to get a fairly smooth line there. But it's okay if it gets fuzzy. I totally expect it to get fuzzy. And now I'm actually going to add some black. The black will lift off, and then it will lift, and we'll see those pretty colors underneath. Actually, I think I want a little bit more. Maybe not a ton of water on my brush, but I do want some more color in here while it's still wet, so that when we do lift off our bokeh effect, it will have these pretty colors underneath, and the black will lift off pretty well, and these brighter colors are going to stain the paper underneath, which I think will be really pretty. That's what I'm thinking in my mind anyway. I think this will be, because it's such a simple scene that that I want to have like enough going on that it's like it kind of fills in a little bit, because I'm not like super informed about like other things that you might have out with a dreidel besides the gold coins, so I think this will be pretty. Alright, so there's our colors that will show up when we lift. And now we're going to grab some black. Any black you have is fine. The black should stay kind of on top while the dye colors seep in. That is my hope. I like the feeling of it being dark out, but then having these like pretty lights showing up. Because we left the dreidel and the coins dry, we don't have to worry about the color seeping into them, which is nice. Help that blend a little bit. Sorry if you're wearing headphones. I don't want to have visible brush strokes here. I just want it to be kind of like kind of modeled. All right, so I'm going to let this dry, and when we come back, we're going to lift off our spots of brightness. All right, this is dry, and so now what I'm going to do is I've got a little filbert brush. This is a number 8 filbert. You can use a scrubber. You can use really anything that's not too. It needs to be a little bit stiff, but not really stiff. So I would say something kind of in the like golden taklon type stiffness range. And what I'm going to do is put my template down on the paper. I'm going to wet my brush and I'm going to blot off the extra. And I'm just going to start lifting through the template. I'm starting the center. I'm going to clean my brush periodically so I take off the extra pigment. And I'm just going to try not to get any water under my template. Okay, so now I have lifted up a bunch of the paint. I don't need to lift it to white. I can press it with a paper towel. And now we've got a nice circle there. Now I could go in and add color to it if I want to. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to lift up colors and see what kind of effect I get. And then I might go in and add more like color to that later. I might add some metallics. I'm not sure. Oh, I think I got a little water under there. If you get water in your stencil, blot it off so you don't end up lifting where you don't want it. But we used a bunch of staining colors, so I think that's going to prevent us from getting anything too, from getting, unwarranted lifting. If you're using like a student grade paint, you might notice you have more of a lifting issue. Going for this all over kind of bokeh effect. And I'm using different size circles so I don't have blot off some of that extra. So I don't have too much, so I have repetition, but I don't want everything to be too repetitive. I need some variety. You've got repetition and you've got variety. Now for this one, I only want to, well, I guess I could lift it off the table as well if I wanted to. I'm really just trying to get the background lifted. Well, that's kind of a neat effect. I'm going to leave that there. I kind of like how that kind of little bubble went in front. Oh, I have my dirty stencil, that's why. Must have had some ink on there from a previous project. Although it does look like the magenta in the background. So it could be that. Let's see. Let's do one up here. I keep this filbert for scrubbing, so I'm not worried about damaging the bristles or anything. Always blot with a dry area of your napkin. Do some little bubbles. Sometimes they sell brushes that are called scrubbers, but some of them are so abrasive that they tear your paper up. They'll peel your paper. The Menta scrubbers by Royal and Langnickel in the watercolor line are wonderful. But then I found a lot of other scrubbers that aren't those are just too abrasive. I don't know what they're meant to scrub, because it doesn't seem like they're meant to scrub watercolor, because it just tears the paper. They usually have really stiff white bristles, but the Royal and Langnickel Mentas, I'll show you, they look like this. They've got the teal handle, they got the beveled edge, so you know they're for watercolor, and they're just a really short filbert. They work really well as well. They have 2 or 3 sizes. I highly recommend those. Or just using a filbert. Filbert has longer bristles than a typical scrubber, but it does work really, really well. I like overlapping the circles. It's getting kind of a nice bokeh effect. I'm debating whether I want to use the if I want to use a template and put some like metallic bubbles on the back. If I just want to spatter some on or what. Because I think that would look really cool too. Okay, I think that looks really neat. I'm gonna let that dry. While that's drying, we can work on the other portions. I'm going to just go with a small round brush. This is, I'd say, number 8. I guess it's not that small. Number 8. I'm going to pick up some of the yellow ochre that's still on my palette, and I'm going to give my dreidel a coat of paint. And I'm going to paint the underside a little bit darker because it would be in more shadow. Actually do the little dowel a little darker too at the bottom. It's nice because I can just use up the paint that I mixed earlier. Maybe I'll add a little bit of that black in there too. Why not? We've used it in the background. As long as you've used it somewhere else in the picture, I think it's fine. In fact, I like to harmonize my painting by using as many, like reusing as many colors as I can. I'm going to do a little yellow ochre on the top of that just for a little highlight. I think that I'm going to add a little burnt sienna too. I think this facet of the dreidel would be a little bit darker than that one there. For the coins, I think I'll do 2 gold and a silver maybe. And for gold, I think I'll use yellow ochre again. I'll do 1 gold and 2 silver. Well, I think I'll make both of the gold the same size. And for silver, I'll just do ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. Add a little more water to that. Maybe add a little of that phthalo blue in there too. There. Okay. That feels pretty dry. So I'm thinking that it would be kind of cool to add some metallic looking bubbles. So I just gotta make sure I don't get into the wet paint there. Maybe smaller ones though. Let's see. I've pre-sprayed. I have some Turner metallics in this palette because it's where I keep my Turner paint. But any metallic paint is going to be fine. I'm not gonna paint too close to the edge. I think what I may do is actually switch to a smaller brush to pull the color right up to the edge so it doesn't go underneath. I might also use this metallic blue to do the letters on the dreidel. I think these will be pretty to have a little bit of color in the background. Oh, it's gonna be tough not to get your brush, not to touch that wet paint. But I like the look of metallic on top of darker colors. Always pre-spray your metallics. Like about 5 minutes before you go to use them, you'll get a much better effect. Oh shoot, I went outside the lines there. Maybe I can... There we go. Picked it up a little bit. Do a few more blue, and then I'll go to another color. I might need to let that dry first. Well, maybe we'll do a big one right off the edge. Just got to keep the big brush away from the edges because that's where I had a mistake before. Just fill in with a little brush. Okay, let's dry this and then we'll come back up and put a few more, well actually while that's drying, I think we could go ahead and add our letters to the dreidel. This will give it a little bit of a glitz. All right. Oh, I could probably do a little bit of like actual metallics on the gold and silver coins. That would be really pretty. Because this is a greeting card, it's not a, I don't know if I pre-wet this one. It's not like a painting that's going to be hung in a frame. So since it's going to be handled, it'll catch the light as it's moved. And that will look really pretty, I think. The Turner metallics are sold in tubes, and they have like, you can get them on their own, or you can get them in sets of 4. They have like pearl colors, like normal metallics like gold, silver, copper, bronze. I think is what I gotta get, the gold, copper, bronze, silver, pearl, and then the pearls would like pearl, yellow, blue, and red. And get a little bit of the bronzy color on the edges. And I think I'll add a little more shadow on the table while I'm at it. I'm going to go burnt sienna, and I'm just using a little brush so I don't get too carried away, and ultramarine blue. I'm just blending that out a little bit. It looks a little harsh, so I want to blend it out so it's a little bit softer. And our blue is almost dry. I want to do some gold. I think gold will look really pretty in the sky. You know what? I'm going to plug in my heat tool and just dry that a little bit. Just to make sure I don't smear it. Okay, I think I actually will end up putting some, let me find the circle that I used for that. I think I will put some like pink in that because I think that would be really pretty, and I think it would go well. You see, it's very, the Turner metallics are very sheer, so I'm not so worried about overdoing it. Like if I was using the Paul Rubens, they're a little bit stronger. I'm not so sure if I like that, but I'm going to go with it. I'm just going to put a couple more pink ones in there. And spread it around with a little brush. It's okay if you want to go in and like I'm doing here and just, well, obviously it's okay. Obviously I approve, I'm doing it, and like refine your edges a little bit if they feel a little wonky, smooth them out. Sometimes it's hard to do that with the stencil because you end up getting too much water or paint on there and it messes up the stencil. So you get little dust motes everywhere. Actually, we could probably freehand these pretty well, to be honest. I'm going to try that, actually. If you're reasonably good at painting circles, go for it. And the pink might look good over the green because they're complementary colors. Ooh, I like this. I'll do a pink one over here. Move that temple out of the way or I'm gonna end up getting into it, I think. I don't have a lot of metallics in the Turner range, so that's gonna just like kind of keep me from going too overboard, so that's probably a really good thing. Let's do some gold. Let's do one here. Ooh, I like this. I think this is the type of technique you could use on a lot of different cards. Because then you can have all these different. This could like kind of signify a bunch of candles in the background, or even, you know, looking outside a window at a busy city street, where you've got like car lights and street lights. Ooh, pretty. I like a little bling. All right, what other colors do I have? Let's do that pearl. I think the pearl on its own might look kind of bland, but we'll see. It's probably going to look very similar to just lifting off color. But it will have a little bit of a reflection, so. And give us a layer. I think it'll give us a nice layer. So we have that, you know, background, lifted off layer. Then we've got our pretty metallic layers. Regardless if you celebrate Hanukkah or have friends that do, I still think this is a really fun technique that you could use in a variety of projects. The pearl is nice because and the pink is nice because you can lay those over kind of the, like where the table and the background meet to kind of bridge it together. Oh, I think that's kind of pretty. All right, I'm going to dry this, and then when we come back, we'll just add a few finishing details. Now I have a couple of brown or sepia Pitt Artist pens and a white gel pen to add a few details. I thought that this could really use a bit of definition, so especially since I didn't bring the background quite up to the dreidel here. So I'm just going to kind of do some outlining. This is the fine tip Pitt Artist pen. I also have a super fine. And I'm just going to outline because I just feel like this needs to be a little bit more dominant because it is the focal point. And I'll tell you a little secret. Generally, if I am fine lining, like the way I film, I've got the camera over, and I generally would kind of like have my head right over it while while I'm fine lining if I wasn't recording. So if my lines are a little bit off, that's why. It just helps me see a little bit better. So you get yourself however it's more comfortable for you to work. If you want to like kind of get your head like right in there, if that's going to help you see a little bit closer, you go right ahead. So I'm using the fine tip pen, which is a little bit bigger than the other one I'm going to use, just to get the kind of outlines. That looks real, a little cartoony. I didn't have a reference, so I just kind of made the coins up. And then I'm going to do the super fine tip, and I'm just going to do some hatching along the edges of the coin. I mean, I realize these are probably like candy, probably like chocolate, but still there would be probably some little bit of detail along the edge. And maybe even like, you put some like, I don't know, squiggles to show like there's like some sort of embossing or texture on there. You could even do some cross hatching on the shadow part of the bottom of the dreidel if you want to. That's up to you. You could even add some shadow on the underneath if you want to with the pen. I'm not going to. I think I've got enough shadow there. I think that really makes it pop though. And then with the white gel pen, I'll make sure it works. You could put like a little bit of a highlight in here. I ran out of my Uniball Signo pen that I usually use. And this one I haven't used in a while. I think it might have started to dry up on me. I don't know what's going. I just don't have enough contrast. I don't have a lot of contrast on where I am putting the highlights. You can also do that with do the squiggles with the white gel pen just to make it have a little bit of texture. If you did want to define some of the bubbles or the little bokehs, you can. They'll look a little more like bubbles than bokehs. They kind of almost like dust motes do. I don't know if I like that or not, but you can do that if you want to, you know, sharpen some of them up a little bit. And then I sign your name and remove the tape. I love removing the tape. It's my favorite part. It's always like, oh, it's going to frame now. Fancy. These are the Arteza watercolor greeting cards. I think they are out of stock. They've been out of stock for a while, but they are, if you can get them, they are my preference for watercolor greeting cards. I also like the Canson and the Strathmore, but the reason I prefer the Arteza is they're 100% cotton, and they're just a lot nicer to paint on, and you get a much nicer effect. And there's nothing wrong with the Strathmore or the Canson ones. It's just their wood pulp, and they're not quite as nice, but I really like these, and I'll just tip it so you can kind of see the sparkle there. This was a fun challenge. I want to thank the viewers that have challenged me to do this project. There's been a couple, and I hope you liked it. I hope you got something from this, and thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up if you liked it, and until next time, happy crafting.